Everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. I recently shared with you that several Republican officials are refusing to hand over communication that they had surrounding the January 6th Capitol attack. One of those I mentioned was State Attorney General Ken Paxton. I've done a couple stories on this scumbag, and things are now heating up on this front because multiple news agencies, including the Houston Chronicle, ProPublica, the Texas Tribune, and others are all working together to gain access to Paxton's correspondence, including encrypted apps. And what they found in response to their requests is pretty shocking, because although Texas has open records laws on the books, as most states do, or all states do, and these open records laws require that public officials turn over communication to and from their taxpayer-funded official accounts when they're asked to do so. Texas has no policy or laws on the books that govern the release of work-related communication if it's conducted on an official's personal device. So there's no standard protocol if an official decides to just use their personal device to communicate. And it appears, in fact, that Paxton, as the Attorney General of the state of Texas, has the final say and determination as to what is and isn't revealed, even when it comes to messages or any kind of communication that involve work-related issues. So they've reached out to his office numerous times. A spokesperson for the Attorney General's office failed to answer reporters' questions about Paxton's authority in this regard. And then Paxton's public information coordinator, a woman named Lauren Downey, told the Houston Chronicle reporters that the Attorney General's office has no written policy or procedures regarding the release of public documents stored on Paxton's personal devices or in his personal accounts. So she confirmed there's no standard protocol. So without the intervention of a judge and a determination in a lawsuit, which could take months or years, Paxton can hide whatever the hell he wants. Think about that. Think about how much Paxton could hide from the public by simply choosing to communicate with people on his private devices rather than his publicly owned devices, knowing that that information can never be made public because he alone controls what the public can and can't see. This is absolute insanity. But the right constantly wants to complain about communism and fascism on the left. Clean up your own backyard first. This guy he's already proven that he believes he's above the law. We already know he's allegedly a criminal. He's under investigation for allegedly using his position as Attorney General to help a donor. And he's facing charges of bribery and abuse of office in regard to that situation, among other things that have been brought up as potential charges. And it was blatant enough that many of his staff members became whistleblowers, and they either quit or they were fired because of this. And then add to that the fact that Paxton still hasn't gone to trial over his previous indictment for multiple securities fraud charges in 2015. 6 years ago, he was indicted for securities fraud, and he still hasn't gone to court over that. So this guy clearly thinks the rules don't apply to him. He can do whatever the hell he wants. The other thing we know is that Paxton's office seems to be contradicting his statements about who paid for his trip to DC. He spoke at Trump's rally prior to the Capitol attack, but Paxton told state senators that he had official business in DC during that week, and that he met with federal officials to discuss a Medicaid program. He stated, quote, "I didn't spend money personally. I had a state purpose The next day, I had meetings at the White House. That's how I spent most of my time. However, when reporters submitted public records requests for communication regarding that trip to DC, they were told that no such records were available to share because, quote, the Office of the Attorney General did not coordinate or pay for General Paxton's trip to Washington, D.C. in early January. Thus, our office has no information responsive to your request. And Paxton so far has refused to say who actually paid for his trip to D.C. And then to top it off, according to documents obtained through similar public records requests, Paxton's first assistant attorney general, a man named Brent Webster, also traveled to DC that week, and his trip was paid for with taxpayer funds. So which is it? Was it an official trip or was it not an official trip? If it was an official trip, then why was he using taxpayer money to go speak at a Trump rally? And if it wasn't an official trip, then why were taxpayers paying for his assistant? And if it was an official trip, then all records surrounding that trip and involving that trip must be released. If the taxpayers paid for it, then we have a right to see any documentation that involves that trip. And here's another thing we know about Paxton and his office. They've discarded work-related messages before, and then they've used bogus excuses to justify it to reporters. So for example, a reporter from the publication called The Morning News texted a state business-related question to Paxton in February. They texted his cell phone, his personal cell phone. At a later date, that same news outlet, The Morning News, submitted a public records request for all text messages sent to Paxton's phone number, for that same phone number where they sent their text on that same day, the same day they texted him on that phone. Paxton's office responded and said he had no messages to share with them. When they questioned this obvious lie, Paxton's communications director, Alejandro Garcia, told them that, quote, unsolicited and unwelcome text messages to personal phones do not fall under the records retention law. I get it if somebody's trying to sell you something, if it's spam, you can deem that as unsolicited and unwelcome, but Paxton gets to decide across the board what he deems unsolicited and unwelcome. And so therefore he doesn't have to retain those records for the public. And that's 100% at his discretion. This guy is a Trump mini-me. If that's not some criminal gangster shit right there, I don't know what is. So reporters reached out to the Texas State Library and Archives Commission, and they were told by the general counsel at that organization, a woman named Sarah Swanson, told them that although state agencies can adopt their own schedules regarding how long they have to retain records, if a text message is sent or received during the course of state business, then that communication is considered to be a matter of government record, and it should be retained for a specified period of time based on the agency's stated policy. So you see the problem here. Paxton is the one who determines the agency's policies. So he can make up his own rules and circumvent the law by saying, well, under the rules that I put in place, I say I don't have to keep these text messages. I don't have to keep these emails, and you're not entitled to see them. It's ridiculous. And he's going full Trump mode on Twitter. He tweeted out, quote, "Triggered Texas fake news cartel strikes again." My office follows open records law. That's our policy. These journalists didn't like what they got, so they complain and spread misinformation. Pathetic. Dear God, someone needs to get this guy into court. Someone needs to move this up the chain of command, up to a level where he has no say-so over it. You can't have state attorney generals just running around making their own rules, breaking the law, and then saying, well, I'm the attorney general, and I say, yeah, that's totally cool. I can do whatever I want. These are the people that are always talking about law and order, but yet they're the biggest freaking criminals on the planet. They just make up their own rules as they go along. And then they say, oh, well, I'm not breaking the rules. I'm not breaking the law because I made the law and I said that's not illegal. That's not how it works. Jesus, God. So I'll keep you posted on this insanity. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.